Hello creatives, we're going to get back to the cat here, the cartoon character. And this lesson we're going to learn about pathfinding, we're going to learn about offset paths, which is a really valuable tool, and using one shape to cut and define other shapes. And the reason we're going to do this is because there are some techniques that are still really dependent on organization in that way. If you've ever seen vinyl banners or vinyl stickers, there's some times where people will do multiple cuts with different rolls of vinyl, different colors, and it's necessary that you have different colors on different layers. So that's one thing. The other thing is it's just a good exercise, especially if you get into doing logos. This is how you can create really clean, efficient logos, and we'll talk about that. So let's get started. I'm going to get my layers to show up here and put these away. You can see I've got that limited color palette, and I've got the color up here. I don't need that anymore, so I'm going to grab this and I'm going to move it in. Okay, so I've got the black silhouette on one layer, and I've got strokes on all these other shapes. Okay, these shapes right here do not require a stroke, so I'm going to get rid of the stroke on these. And again, the ultimate aim for me when I'm doing the design work here is that I want to have the most simplistic file that I can. I try to make sure that I take into account the fact that people make mistakes as well as I, and so I try to make sure that I facilitate an environment within this interface where it's going to be very difficult to make a mistake. And that's why if I don't have a color that's being used here, I don't have it existing in this swatches palette, because somehow or another, if you know about Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. I've seen it happen. And so I've seen it where people grab a color over here and run with an assumption because they may be pressed for time or something like that. And it is what it is. It happens. Okay? We don't want that to happen, though. It could be a big client and it could cost you. So how do we get started with this? Well, as far as these go, I want to make sure that we get this going. Let's see. Let's start off with the whiskers. Okay, so the whiskers have a stroke on them. I don't want a stroke on them. I want, again, to have these so that the black will come through the negative spaces that I create. So I'm going to make kind of like a complex puzzle here. So I'm going to go and get rid of the whiskers, and I'm clicking. And if you click with the white arrow, be careful not to click on the edge, because then you do this. I'm clicking in the center with the shift key, and I'm looking to see that the anchor points are solidly filled, whereas this one's a problem, so I'm going to reselect that one. Shift click, shift click, shift click. I also should be doing it with my black arrow, but if you're on the white arrow, you can get away with that if you click inside. Alright, so letter X to toggle or to flip-flop between these two and get rid of this. And I'm going to do something called an offset path. Now, before you go with an offset path, it's important to probably go to points in terms of your size, your measurement for this particular project. And notice object path and offset path. What is this? Well, let's find out. An offset path makes exact duplicates of the shape that you've got selected, only larger scale dependent on the measure that you put in the offset. Notice how large that got. Now, the thing is that you can also go with a negative number. Let's say negative 0.2 and see what that did for us. It disappears because it was too big a measure. So this is my point. My point is when you're dealing with inches in terms of offset path, you're always going to be dealing with tenths, hundredths, or thousandths of an inch. So I want to cancel this and undo, and then I want to redo it now, get rid of all the strokes. So undo is Command Z or Control Z, PC environment. This environment, you go Command Shift Z to redo something that you've undone. So it's a redo. Undo, redo. Command Shift Z. Alright, so to alleviate the incremental problem with inches and all the complexities of that, if you're a typical graphic designer that is creative and generally may not like math or numbers that much, you go to Control or Command F I'm sorry, Command R for rulers, you right click and you change it to points. A student taught me this. They said, I did it in points and I get whole numbers. And that's the benefit of teaching, is that you get paid to learn. Path, offset path, and now we're dealing in whole numbers, and I'll say 1 and preview that. Okay, I get that. That's perfect. Except I don't want to put the outline. What I want is highlights. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to make my whiskers black. So I'm going to cancel this. Letter I, eyedropper this. So black whiskers, but I'm going to put a highlight on them. So let's do that. Object path, offset path. Object path, offset path. Okay, now I want to put the whisker highlight inside, so I'm going to go -1 and see how that does. That's too small. -3, how's that do? -3 seems to get it done. Okay, -3. Let's zoom in on the result. Okay, so Control Y. You can see there's the original whisker. This is the highlight. That works well for me. Command Y. The only problem is that it gives you a lot of anchor points, but that's just one of the things you're going to have to accept if you're going to go this route. And it's not too bad. And I go in letter or eyedropper with the letter I, the white, and then I get those highlights. And I think that that adds a lot. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. I'm going to save my file, Command S. And so we get to the pathfinding. Okay. Pathfinder, I'm going to go and open a new window. Artboards option. And what are artboards? Artboards, again, this is the artboard, the white. So what I want to do is I want to go and create another artboard. So up here, new artboard, or duplicate an artboard. I would just want to create a new artboard so I can make a demonstration here. And what I would do, and what I want you to do, is to go and click with your rectangle tool and hit the shift key, drag it out, let go of your mouse, let go of your key, and let's go to my color palette. Colors over here, and let's go and make it a color. And then under here, I want to go and create a circle that's overlapping. And okay. So with those two colors, I'm going to go and show you what the artboard is. Not the artboard, but the Pathfinder tool. Okay, Pathfinder tool. Pathfinder. If you go to Window, Pathfinder is down here, and it's, if you notice, these are all alphabetized. It makes it easier to, if you remember that. So Pathfinder is down here, and it brings up this tool palette. Okay. Now the Pathfinder, these are the 4 that we use. I've used the Pathfinder. It's something I use every day. It helps with craftsmanship. And if you look at the graphic, it's going to be pretty self-explanatory once you understand how this is illustrated. So again, I need to grab the green arrow, the green square 2. So shift click on the green. Space bar, move this over. Command Option space bar. Make it a little bit smaller. And what I want to do is I want to make 4 of these. And so how do I do that again? Again, Option key to drag duplicates. But if you want them to stay in a nice alignment to keep a grid, you hit the Shift key and they stay in alignment. They constrain. Okay, so I'm just black arrow, my selection tool, I'm marking over these 2. Notice I don't have to grab everything, just grab this. As long as it's touching. Whereas with the white arrow, it would be different, but the black arrow for selecting the whole thing. If you look at these 2 shapes, both of them become one unit, meaning that this overlap is going to go away. It'll come down, contour will change to this, straight across, and it will adopt the color of the top shape. Okay, Command Y, you can see what happened. Now this, If it's a stroke with no fill in here, that means that the top shape is going to cut and define the second shape, leaving the remnant. So when we're done with this, you're only going to get this green part. We go down here to the third. This is going to, can you guess what's going to happen here? This part will remain. And then we come down to this one, and this part is going to go away, leaving the rest. Okay, so that's the Pathfinder tool. These down here are very complicated, and I use those very rarely in my experience. Okay, I use these every day. Okay, so I'm going back to this, and in fact, I don't need this any longer, so I'm going to be sure to go and throw that away. Artboard 2, trash can. Marquee these, delete. Command 0. Okay, and then I can go and put this over here because I'm going to be really busy with that in a minute. Drop that in there to keep myself nice and tidy here. Okay, so in terms of the cat here, this is one of the best exercises I've ever had to do, and I have students for a long time tell me that this is a crucial exercise for them, that it taught them how to get this going, and when they got to this point, they never looked back. So, if you notice, the goal again is to get this so that the black is all residing on one layer, the yellow's on a layer, the white's on a layer, red's on a layer, yellow's on a layer, etc. So eventually, I'm going to Pathfinder these to the face, like so. Okay, eventually, this is what's going to happen. Control Z, Command Z. But the thing is I also need these whiskers to cut and define this, because eventually this is what I want to happen with these guys. Oops, not that. Shift click. Well, I can just do this right here. Eventually, I want all the whiskers to cut and define this as a stencil. So, how do I use both the whiskers to define the contour edge of the face, but also to create these shapes to create the cheeks as a stencil? Well, really quick, I think we covered this in an earlier video, but just so that you are refreshed. You grab these three things, and just to illustrate the point, notice how these three are acting as an individual shape, but if I hit Command 8 or Object Compound Path Make, that's the quick key, is Command 8. And what that does is it makes all three shapes behave as one shape. So that's what I need to do with these. Shift click, Shift click, Shift click, or Marquee with the Shift key held down. And if I cut these, you can see I've got them all selected. Command X. Command Z puts them back. Command 8 so that they behave as one. And you're thinking, what happened to the white highlights? When I get these and I hit the Command 8, which is a compound path, it pulls them to the top. If you hit Command Y, you can see the highlights are still there. They just got put behind because these got pulled up forward. Alright, so I'm going to copy these guys, and then I'm going to shift click on the cheeks. The cheeks are on the eye level. The black whiskers are on layer 4 up here. So let's zoom in on this so you can see what's going to happen. So these blue shapes are going to cut. Which one am I going to need to use for this? It's going to be this one, which is the minus front. And now you can see the result. Okay, and this is again a way to make your piece more economic in terms of complexity, and it's a beautiful thing. Command F. Okay, I just remembered something. I want to have a circle behind this. So I'm going to go right here between the eyes, Option Shift, and create a circle. And I like that. And I'm going to make it an orange circle with a green outline. I can do an offset path, or I can simply go Command C, Command F, and Command Y so you can see what's going to occur. And I can bring it in like this. Okay? Then I'm going to go select the outermost part. Well, I'm going to grab both of these because I have to get rid of the color first. And then I have to assign the color. This is going to be green, and this will be orange. Okay, so how do I solve that dilemma? I got to be able to pick the colors, but I can't pick them through. And I don't have my swatches palette, so this is something I like to do sometimes. Okay, marquee to both of these. So the inner circle is going to be orange, the outer circle is going to be green. And then these will both sit behind. New layer, circles, and drag this down here above the image and drag this dot right there. Okay. All right. I'm going to make these a little bit smaller. Shift, come down here. And I think the outer part needs to be black. Okay, I'm happy with that. We'll save this for here for now. Okay, Command S. And so we want to make sure that we can show our whiskers again though. So let's go and click on these, or the white highlighted whiskers. I clicked on the outside by mistake, so shift click. Get the white whiskers. They're on the top layer. So in order to get them to the front, I'll hit Command X, Command F. And so now you can see the result. That's what we did this lesson. We also learned about compound paths, meaning making these multiple shapes behave as one. We covered doing an offset path. We covered artboards. So we covered a lot. So what I want you to do is I want you to trace this character per the last assignment and get to the point where you can get the whiskers done in this fashion. Okay, remember the key is select these whiskers. After you've drawn them, you're going to make a Command 8 or a compound path so they act like one. Then you need to copy them so that you can use the originals that are still here to cut the cheek. And then once you cut the cheek, they're going to disappear. But don't forget, you copied them so they're lingering in the clipboard. And so if you hit Command F, they'll reappear, and then you can use those to put them right here again. So we use the whiskers to cut and define these like a stencil, and then we're going to use the whiskers again. So we needed to have that copy ready to go.